Dear friends, this is Professor Madhyamika Chattopadhyay from the Department of Philosophy, Jadavpur University. Today, I will discuss with you the distinction between the Prasangika and Svatantrika approaches of Madhyamika Buddhism. The text Mula Madhyamika Karika of Nagarjuna inspired a great number of commentarial literature in Buddhism. The earliest commentary in this regard was by Buddhapalita, who belonged to 500 AD. Buddhapalita followed the method of Nagarjuna himself, that is the Prasanga method, which proceeds by showing that the opponent's position leads to consequences which are either unacceptable to the opponent himself or does lead to absurdity. The next important commentator on this text was Bhaviveka, who is also known as Bhavaviveka or Bhavya. His commentary was named Pragya Pradip. Apart from this commentary, Bhaviveka wrote another text known as Madhyamika Hridaya Karika and an auto-commentary on the text, namely Tarka Jala. In the Pragya Pradipa, Bhavaviveka made use of a formal syllogism as independent argument Svatantrika to establish the Madhyamika thesis. Bhaviveka strongly criticized Buddhapalita for failing to apply independent formal arguments. Bhavaviveka thought that the task of a commentator is to provide independent arguments rather than merely employing prasanga arguments. This view of Bhavaviveka was later on criticized by Chandrakirti, who defended Buddhapalita and argued in favor of applying the prasanga arguments. Chandrakirti criticizes the attempt of Bhavaviveka to provide independent arguments on the ground that it does not follow the rules of logic properly. According to the rules of logic, any viable independent argument presupposes the existence of objects admitted by both the parties involved in the difference. This, however, is impossible in the context of discussion regarding the ultimate nature of phenomena between the Madhyamika and any thinker belonging to other school, for the main contention of any Madhyamika thinker is to show that no such object exists. Accordingly, the Madhyamika thinker cannot take recourse to any independent argument to establish his position without getting involved in self-contradiction. This being the case, no Madhyamika thinker is able to advance any independent argument without violating the rules of logic in his course. In short, Chandrakirti as a Prasangika criticizes the Svatantrika not only for compromising his Madhyamika principles but also for being an incompetent logician. On the background of such debate, the Tibetan scholars regarded Bhavaviveka to be the founder of the Svatantrika subschool of Madhyamika and Chandrakirti retrospectively as the founder of Prasangika subschool because of his critique of Bhavaviveka and defense of Buddhapalita. The distinction between these two schools of Madhyamika, though had its origin in India, was made popular by the Tibetan masters. Even in the Tibetan tradition, there are two different interpretations regarding the distinction between the Svatantrika and the Prasangika schools. One given by Tsongkhapa, the father of the Gelugpa order, and the other given by Sodnamsa Senge in the work The General Meaning of Madhyamika. According to Tsongkhapa, the two schools were not divided on the basis of the character of arguments to be employed against the opponents. Rather, on the basis of a philosophical difference involving the acceptance of a particular kind of real existence of entity. The Svatantrikas accepted the existence of entities by virtue of their characteristic marks, which the Prasangikas did not admit. This constitutes the basic difference between the two schools. In short, according to Tsongkhapa, the difference is more ontological than logical. On the other hand, Sonam Senge believed that the difference between the two is logical and epistemological, and there is no major difference in respect of their ontology. Their main difference lies in the nature of the arguments employed to convince the opponents of the truth of philosophy which they mutually shared. The designations Svatantrika and Prasangika, however, were not used by Buddhapalita, Bhavaviveka and Chandrakirti either as names of their branches of the Madhyamika system or as opposed schools of the Madhyamika. In fact, the term Svatantrika as derivative of the Sanskrit term Swatantra is not found in Sanskrit. It has come into existence as a retro translation of the Tibetan expression Rangyupa, and similarly the word Prasangika is a retro translation of the expression Thalgyurba. The term Svatantrika probably is used for the first time in the writings of Jayananda, a Kashmiri scholar who was active in Tibet and Central Asia in the 11th century. In his commentary on Chandrakirti's Madhyamika Avatara, the expression Rangyupa has been used to designate a characteristic feature of Madhyamika philosophical method in Bhavaviveka school to refer to the person who employs it. However, the term Prasangika cannot be found in Jayananda's writings. In Tibet, the tendency to distinguish the tradition of Chandrakirti along with Buddhapalita and Shantideva from other Madhyamika thinkers like Bhavaviveka, Shantarakshita and Kamalashela started in late 11th century when the main Madhyamika works of Chandrakirti were being translated. Apart from Jayananda, mention may be made of Nongblo Lan Sheshrab, who is usually considered to be the first major proponent of Svatantrika tradition and the main proponent of Chandrakirti's Prasangika tradition. From 11th century to 14th, 15th century onwards, the Svatantrika Prasangika distinction was well established as a major doxographical sub-schematization of the Madhyamika thought. In fact, for the Gelugpa tradition, it was considered to be the only valid one for discussion. Tsongkhapa regarded Chandrakirti's Prasangika to be the only correct interpretation of Madhyamika thoughts. Concerning the appropriateness and significance of the two terms Svatantrika and Prasangika, Tsongkhapa, admitting that these terms cannot be noticed in the earlier sources of Madhyamika philosophy, holds that these terms actually refer to two different philosophical procedures by which the ultimate reality or shunyata can be understood or apprehended. According to Tsongkhapa, these two terms are not arbitrary creations of the later Tibetan scholars but are in conformity and consistency with the procedure of Chandrakirti as found in the commentary Prasannapada. Although the division of these two systems of Madhyamika thought was popular in Tibet before the arrival of Tsongkhapa, he presented a new criteria for this division. According to him, the difference lies in respect of their interpretations of the three kinds of non-substantiality, three Nishsvabhata, as found in the text Sandhi Nirmochana Sutra. He further pointed out that as followers of Nagarjuna, both Chandrakirti and Bhavaviveka were in agreement regarding the ontic and epistemological status of the ultimate reality. Their disagreement was mainly in respect of their respective views of empirical reality or samvriti. In spite of the fact that Tsongkhapa considered himself as a Prasangika, he has regarded Bhavaviveka as a leading Madhyamika who is a substantialist or Vastuvadin or Vastu Sat Padarthavadin. The Svatantrika conventionally accepts as real the self-characteristic, while the Prasangikas do not admit the reality of such self-characteristic either in the ultimate level or in the conventional level. Such difference in the admission of the ontological status of the self-characteristics constitutes a basis of Chandrakirti's rejection of autonomous inference or Svatantra as a separate proof and Bhavaviveka's acceptance of it.